America, one nation under God, and we are indivisible. So Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, men and women of all walks, races, size, shapes, and colors are delivering here today on what needs to be. We have looked upward, we've turned our eyes to God, and I won't quit saying it. That is where justice is coming from. It doesn't come without our effort, and we cannot just sit idly by and pray. We must pray. We can't just sit there and pray for a hole. We have to get our hands on the shovel and get involved. But this is our country. This is our future, and it belongs to all of us. Democrat or Republican, you and me together. This was a case for America. Stay loud, stay free, and never bend the knee.
You're watching The Case for America on Real America's Voice.
Saturday, 23 May in the year of our Lord, 2026. We are here in the War Room for our kickoff of our special Memorial Day weekend. We do this every year. Patrick K. O'Donnell will be my co-host, the finest combat historian of his generation. We're going to cover a lot of territory today. I want to announce that on Monday, during the actual Memorial Day commemoration, Patrick K. O'Donnell will also join me. We're going to start at 10 o'clock in the morning as we do War Room every day. We're going to go to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 10 to 2, a 4-hour special War Room covering live everything to do with Memorial Day, the parade up on Capitol Hill, the president's remarks, laying a wreath, and the remarks, appropriate remarks at Arlington National Cemetery, and all of it. Today, I want to kick off our very special coverage by getting one of the most beloved of our contributors, Cleo Pascal, joins us. Cleo, you were out in the Pacific, as we find you often. You were at Peleliu, I guess yesterday, the day before, when there was historic battles of World War II. And your fight today is to make sure that we don't ever have to do that again, by making sure that the American territory out there is kept safe and free. Might want to add also, the reason we're starting with Cleo, we're going to get Mark Noah up for a minute from History Flights. Our Memorial Day specials very much focus on the honored dead. Memorial Day is not Veterans Day. This is not for service to your country. There's so many great veterans. Obviously, so many people have volunteered and pitched in to help defend this country. It's not Veterans Day, and I think the veterans will be the first to tell you, Memorial Day, we are focused on the honored dead that gave the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this republic. Peleliu, why were we out there, and why should Peleliu still be a central memory in the people of the United States, ma'am?
Thank you for doing this. It was a horrific battle. I mean, all battles are obviously horrific, but this was just awful. And when you go there and see the size of the island and feel the heat and see the caves where the Japanese had dug in, and the tiny beach that so many Americans threw their bodies up against in order to try to dislodge them. And of course, the questions about whether the battle was even necessary, but the human cost and the courage and the grit and the fight and the loss resonates in a way that is very difficult to describe if you don't go to the battle sites. So we were there as part, actually, of a Sasakawa USA Foundation meeting that was being held here in Palau. And so to visit the sites along with Japanese colleagues who were feeling it all in a very different way, but with everybody combined in the wish, because there were also Taiwanese as part of the visit, that this doesn't happen again, was a very powerful, moving experience. And I very much hope that the spirits of those who are there will find some peace on both sides, knowing that they're more willing to carry on the fight to try to keep this region free.
Why Normandy's obviously so well known, but in the teaching of the history of World War II, we often forget or overlook the Pacific War, which was horrific, and based upon a strategic predicate set by the giants of the late 19th century in the United States strategically, that we are a Pacific nation and manifest destiny rolls all the way through the three island chains. That because we are a Pacific nation, and quite frankly, the Central Pacific, that vast ocean, is our Central Asia, so to speak, our strategic pivot.
Yes.
In the strategy to win, there, you had MacArthur's strategy, you had Nimitz, but you also had the Marines had a part of this. They had continuous amphibious assaults, every bit as bloody and maybe even bloodier than Normandy in the Pacific. In Peleliu, you said it's even questioned today there was so much finger pointing afterwards of the horrific nature of the fight. And exactly when you look at it, what are we exactly fighting for on this one? That there was a lot of questioning, in the Marine Corps, a lot of questioning of senior command, and it's only gotten worse in history. Why is that, Cleo Pascal?
It was part of a strategic question about how to liberate Philippines, and whether this was it was essential to take out the specific Japanese airfield and the one in the neighboring island of Angar, or whether you could whether the Japanese defenses were weak enough that you could hop over them and go straight to Leyte, for example. So it's a question of sort of how to do it, but not why. It needed to be done, and I think that needs to be remembered. This fight, unfortunately, wasn't started by the U.S., but it needed to be won. And the men who died, and you can read about it with The Old Breed, that classic, and look at the videos and see the look in the eyes of the men during the battle. They gave everything. Even the ones who came home gave a lot of themselves and left it on that island. And then many of them had to continue on. The fight wasn't over. Moving up the Marianas, Saipan, and then obviously Okinawa. But it needed to be done, and it was for Peleliu was 1st Marine Division and 81st Infantry Division. The Japanese had changed tactics. And originally, they were trying to fight the U.S. on the beaches, but in this case, they'd sort of withdrawn. So they pulled the forces up into the island, killed a lot on the beach, but then had embedded into the caves and could really get at them in that way. And there's a ridge, Bloody Nose Ridge, that goes through the island that the U.S. Military had to crawl up and fight hand to hand with Japanese soldiers who knew reinforcements weren't coming and who had 30 years to embed themselves into this very hostile terrain. Yes, we can discuss, whether this particular part of the strategy of Forager was worth it or not. Stalemate 2 is what this was called, but whether this had to be fought, because exactly as you said, the Central Pacific has been known, at least since the 19th century, to be America's geographical pivot of history. If a hostile foreign power can set up in the Central Pacific, mainland U.S. isn't safe. It had to be fought, and it had to be won.
We learned a very disturbing lesson in the 1930s in 1940s and the sacrifice to come back. You mentioned a book before I go to, and I'm going to ask Patrick K. O'Donnell why the Marines were not in Normandy and they were in the Pacific, because that's always a question that has an interesting answer. Eugene Sledge was I believe it was University of Alabama. It might have been Auburn, but I think it was University of Alabama. He was a professor there. And he was, I guess, taught history, I don't know, but he had written a memoir, but it wasn't published until later with the Old Breed. If you ever want to read a book that will shake you to your core and take away all the glamour of warfare, it is that book. In fact, it was the predicate after they made Band of Brothers, against Tom Hanks and HBO, that was so successful, they did the Pacific War. And they took two books, I think it was Lecky's My Helmet for a Pillow, and then Eugene Sledge with the Old Breed. Spielberg and these guys had optioned the book. Pascal, one of the reasons the book is so disturbing, at the very beginning, Sledge, and he's writing this as a old man looking back over when he was a Marine, when he was with the, at the very beginning, I think he was 17 or 18 years old. He made a statement. There's nothing more vicious or harder in the world than an 18-year-old American that's been trained to fight. It was, and you read the memoir and you understand. Why was that? Why were these were 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, a lot of them, that hit that beach, and they were trained, but in the draft it was a modicum of training before you hit it. Why was this fight so vicious?
There when many, if you I would defer obviously to military people, but what you hear a lot is they were fighting for each other, and they weren't going to let each other down, and they knew the weight that they were carrying, and they were just going to go forward with it. Also, there are a lot of other I've heard emotions involved in it. I would really defer to the book. The power of the description of the emotions and of the viciousness and of what had to be done is something that I'm not qualified. It's not right for me to tell that story. You should hear it from the people who lived through it. Yep.
And by the way,
just one other.
Hang on, and you can, because a documentary is also made. Ken Burns's "The War" about World War II. Yeah. I think you actually see that and then they did the miniseries called "The Pacific" in 2010, also based upon the Old Breed. Continue on, Pascal.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be very different from the sort of things from your documentary about more recent conflict. I think that sentiment is similar. I would just one thing that I would bring up is what happened. Where were the Pelelians? Because this is very relevant for today. So the Japanese had taken the local population off of Peleliu and had moved them onto the main island. So this was just a battlefield. This was just a killing field. And when you go today, and I think you'll be getting to it later on about bringing the men home. Yes. There's still there's like a caves there where the U.S. had to use flamethrowers to try to clear out the caves, and in many cases then just sealed the caves up. And many haven't been properly excavated. They just found a mass Japanese grave on Angar. So there is something soaked into the soil and the rocks of these islands that is not of the people of the islands. It's what was brought to these islands by other other winds that were blowing. But today is the people of these islands that are making incredibly courageous stands for freedom. So Peleliu and Palau is a country that recognizes Taiwan. It's one of less than a dozen that still recognizes Taiwan, and it does it on principle. And it's a independent country in free association with the U.S. And the Marines are back on Peleliu. One of the things that we did in Peleliu was get a briefing from the Marines about the plans for rebuilding the airfield and for putting in a Joint Operations Center, and it's coming back to life again, not because of what the U.S. wants, but because what another aggressive expansionist Asian power wants. And this time, the locals are very much in the fight.
Yeah, hang on for 1 second. We're going to continue this. We're going to focus for the next couple of days on the 250th commemoration of the birth of this republic and the Revolutionary War. Patrick K. O'Donnell has written his third in the series about that, but he was an in-bed combat historian with the Marines in the Iraq War and some of our bloodiest battles. He knows about the camaraderie of the Marines, and he knows about Peleliu. Mark Noah also. Short break, back in the warm in a moment.
Yes, I actually won!
See this? It just arrived from Deal Dash, a Nintendo Switch 2.
Look what I just won. I love Deal Dash.
With millions of auctions, you too can start winning, like this.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
And today, new users get a $50 bonus credit. Go to DealDash.com right now for huge savings
and free shipping from our U.S. warehouses.
Memorial Day is about remembering what was done for us and the sacrifices that allowed us to enjoy the freedom we have today. America is a country that was born from sacrifice, courage, and love of country. And Angel is one of the few platforms that reflects these kinds of stories, that remind us of America's nobility and exceptionalism. And right now, Angel is offering a 42% off sale to honor America this Memorial Day. Angel has content such as Something to Stand For with Mike Rowe.
And I'm glad you're along for the ride.
A powerful tribute to the people and stories that shaped America. There's also Indivisible, the true story of a military family navigating service, sacrifice, and the price of duty.
People's lives just part of your job description or something?
I mean, kind of.
Okay, well, my marriage is none of your business.
And there are other great Angel films and series that celebrate America, such as Green and Gold, about perseverance and legacy in a small town.
You do anything to hurt her, and I will hunt you down, and I'll gut you like a 10-pointer.
Or how about Homestead, the story of how a family fights for survival? Or even The Last Rodeo, a wonderful film starring Neil McDonough, in which at 50 years old, he has to return to the bull ring after a family crisis. Angel is one of the few platforms where its members have an actual voice. Guild members get to decide what films and series get made. With over 2 million Guild members, it has become clear that Angel is setting a new bar in the entertainment industry. And right now, you can become one of those Guild members for 42% off this Memorial Day weekend. And if you become a premium member, you'll enjoy 2 free tickets to any of Angel's releases in theaters, such as the highly anticipated blockbuster Young Washington. So join today using the QR code on your screen or angel.com/RAV and honor American sacrifice and legacy while enjoying fantastic content that uplifts and amplifies light.
1 in 4 kids grows up without a father. That's not just a bland statistic. It's a national crisis. I'm John Popola, host of Dad Saves America and CEO of Emergent Order Foundation. I like to say we're what it would look like if Warner Brothers and PBS had a baby that actually loved America. We're building a movement that defends the family and calls men to step up, not check out. Visit dsa-rav.com today to take a stand for fatherhood and the American family.
Okay, welcome back. Patrick K. O'Donnell, you were an embedded combat historian with the Marines in some of our bloodiest battles in Iraq. Wrote a great book about it. You know about With the Old Breed. Why was Professor Sledge correct There's nothing more vicious or tough or a better killing machine than a young 18-year-old American let loose on a battlefield, properly trained, sir.
I saw that firsthand with the Marine Corps in the Battle of Fallujah, where 18 and 19-year-olds, private first classes, lance corporals would take the lead. And like the Pacific War, it was a war of annihilation. Fallujah was a fight to the death. The place was kind of a Star Wars bar of international terrorists from 17 different countries, including Chechens. They were in bunkered positions, and they had to be rooted out with, in many cases, World War II weapons, everything from satchel charges to Bangalore torpedoes, which were long tubes of TNT that could detonate an entire house, to small rockets, to small arms, to hand grenades. And I went with a rifle platoon house to house, clearing those houses with them of an enemy that was there to fight to the death. In many cases, they were on liquid adrenaline or other drugs. I witnessed where an entire house would fall down on these individuals and they'd still be firing from the rubble. That's how determined they were. A very determined and tough enemy. But what really impressed me the most was the 18 and 19-year-olds that I saw that just were indomitable, intrepid. After the death of Michael Hanks, who was mortally wounded in front of me, I just saw the squad get back together. I remember looking back at these guys, and they were just on one knee, and his best friend just said, "Okay, go to the next house," and they just moved forward. Just an incredible, like I said, a next great generation of Americans that we're fighting.
You talk about this intrepid nature and the great courage and valor of the American fighting man and woman. At Tarawa and Peleliu, it reached, in the stories, I don't think they've been told in books. There are many great books about these two battles. It's never really gotten the popular media, like Tom Hanks's and Steven Spielberg's great film about Normandy. And all the films have been, Longest Day, all the films about Normandy. But and that's why I think in Ken Burns' The War, the documentary, and particularly the Pacific, they tried to make up for that. But I don't think people realize the carnage and the intensity of the fight that the Marines had and the valor that was displayed over. If you look at it geostrategically, you can actually understand the island hopping and why you need to go here, or you need to take Saipan because you need an air-based, basically a aircraft carrier type island to do the air assaults into Japan to try to make sure we don't have to invade. But I think it gets lost in me, particularly when you see the isolated or the desolate nature of these, essentially, I guess they're not atolls, but they're not vibrant, robust islands either. Talk to me about that for a minute, about the brutality of the amphibious warfare in the Pacific. Like I said, Normandy gets a lot, as it should, because Normandy, I think, was even bloodier than people realize. This is why the Tom Hanks movie, the Steven Spielberg movie, Saving Private Ryan, although it's a very contrived premise for the story, the actual first 30 minutes, which is mesmerizing, I think puts in perspective what Ernie Pyle and many others. Ernie Pyle wrote that great story. He walked the beach at Normandy on the evening after the first day, and the carnage he described was almost like looking at, I guess, 9/11, if you were down there at the very pit of 9/11 and seeing those twisted buildings and the smell and the smoke and the fire that was still going on that wouldn't be put out. Tarawa and Peleliu in Marine Corps history, the Marines will tell you it's some of their bravest moments, some of the best fighting. When Mark Noah comes on in a minute and talks about some of these islands and really what we have done in not remembering the remains of these great warriors, putting in perspective what they did is unbelievable. The Marines were not in Normandy. One of the reasons they were not in Normandy was a political thing, because the Marines had done such a great job at Bella Wood that the U.S. Army thought, hey, I think we got Europe from now on. We're not going to need your help. Tarawa and Peleliu, why do they stick out, particularly in the core? It's like the Chosin Reservoir. There's a handful of these fights, Fallujah being one. It's a handful of these fights that stick out in the combat memory. Maybe not the official histories, maybe not some of the ceremonies, but in the combat, in the true warrior combat passed down generation to generation in an unbroken chain of stories. Why Tarawa and Peleliu? Why do they stick out?
Because of the bloody and just absolute nature of savage nature of the fighting. And it's here that it's the lore of the Corps, so to speak. Looking at, for instance, Bella Wood on June 6, 1918, where they helped stop the Great German Drive at Paris, where the 5th and 6th Marine Regiments, which are part of the 2nd Division, U.S. Army Division, play a crucial role. And then it's in that lore of the Corps. It's the storied battles of the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps is all about teaching its history to its recruits, and it's imbued within them the legacy of the Corps in these great battles. And the Pacific is where the Marine Corps really, has some of its finest hours. Peleliu, for me, is something that I was experienced firsthand with the veterans that I interviewed for Give Me Tomorrow. And that was the Marines at the Chosin Reservoir. But the core members of George Company were veterans of the 1st Marine Division. They fought on the Matanacao River at Guadalcanal. They fought near the airfield in the jungles of Guadalcanal and at Peleliu. For instance, the main character of that book, Rocco Zulo, is a veteran of Peleliu, and he fights at the airfield and is awarded the Silver Star for his bravery. This is a savage contest. It even begins with the first submarine reconnaissance operation, where the USS Burfish launches 5 men who were members of the OSS Maritime Unit to conduct a reconnaissance of the island in rubber boats. The subsurfaces, and they make their way in. They're trying to get sounding and other type of data for the invasion. And 3 of those men are captured by the Japanese. They are interrogated and they are executed and never seen again. This is kind of what Memorial Day is all about. It's about honoring those men that never came home.
You're absolutely correct. And we're going to get to Mark Noah in a second about what's really being done on this, because it's a topic that I think is urgent. Cleo had mentioned the Japanese defenders, and I think it was Clint Eastwood later doing Flags of Our Fathers who was so moved in doing, I think it was the Battle of Iwo Jima, that he did American version, then he did the Japanese version. One of the things that hit me most powerfully when I was a young man, my destroyer, when we were called out of the Pacific, out of the Hawaiian Op area in the middle of the night to cruise to make all deliberate speed to the Persian Gulf, to the Straits of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf in 1979 with the taking of the U.S. Embassy. We followed a carrier, and we stopped in Guam for some repairs and some replenishing, but some repairs. And as we pull into Guam, and this is in 1979, I think it was November of 1979, we pull into Guam. We get there, at that time, now it's revving back up, but back then it was a base that really had been a little bit forgotten. Everything had passed it by. You had Subic Bay, we were much more on patrol in the South China Sea. There was a story, and the locals told us about it. In 1972, just 7 years before my destroyer pulled in 1972, the last Japanese soldier walked out of the jungle in Guam and surrendered. He didn't know the war was over, but he was told, in his devotion to the emperor, his devotion to his religion, his devotion to his people and to his fellow soldiers, they were told, as Cleo just told you, you're not leaving, you're going to fight to the death right here. This is the last thing on earth you're ever going to see, and you're going to stop the Americans. You're going to stop the foreign devils, and you're going to stop them right here. Whether that was Tarawa, Peleliu, Guam, Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, the sacrifice of these 17 and 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids. And that's why, if you get a chance, Eugene Sledge's book, With the Old Breed, is one of the most disturbing reads you will ever have, because it is a grunt's eye view of what Mortal Kombat is really about, without any of the conventions of Hollywood, right? This is the way it really was, as told first person by the guy that experienced it. We're going to find out what the reward was for that sacrifice. You would assume in a nation as that has done as well as we've had, that is the greatest nation in the history of the earth, that the warriors that gave all in those almost forgotten battles would somehow be remembered. Mark Noah is going to join us here in a moment. Mark Noah I had on Breitbart Radio, I think it was a decade ago, and some of the great work he has been doing. We'll take a short commercial break. We have Cleo Pascal out in the Pacific. We've got our own Patrick K. O'Donnell. Mark Noah is going to join us in a moment. Short break.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
The media has sold us out. Our institutions are rotting, and the American family is under siege. I'm John Popola, CEO of Emergent Order Foundation, and we are fighting back. From Dad Saves America to bold, unapologetic content about faith, freedom, and fatherhood, we're telling the stories that the legacy media has abandoned. Join the mission. Scan the QR code or visit eof-rav.com to support media that fights for America.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you.
Call or scan for your free writer's guide today.
Water, nature's ultimate cleaner. We drink it, we bathe in it. Think water, think steam, think clean. Now harness the power of water with the H2O X5 5-in-1 steam cleaning system.
I'm so impressed with the X5.
It's an all-in-one product, so I can use it throughout my entire house.
It's cleaning, it's sanitizing, there's no chemicals in it. It's just steam.
This is unbelievable. There is no more odor.
5 minutes, I'm done. Look at that, it's amazing.
If you're ready to step into an effective, economical, and eco-safe world of cleaning, look no further than the H2O X5. Using just the power of superheated water, the X5 Super Hot Steam cleans and kills up to 99% of germs, viruses, and bacteria. You could spend over $500 to purchase the products that the X5 5-in-1 Miracle replaces. But through this special TV offer, you won't spend $400, $300, or even $200. Order your H2O X5 steam cleaning system, a $500 value, for just 4 easy payments of $43. You'll get the X5 steam mop with microfiber pad, the carpet glider, the handheld scrubber, the window glass and mirror attachment, and the garment and upholstery bonnet. It's a complete 10-piece system, all this for just 4 easy payments of $43. But it gets even better. Order now and we'll upgrade your X5 package. We'll add a 6th mode with a dusting and polishing wand. Valued at over $30, this extra bonus attachment makes your H2O X5 the H2O X6. That means your 10-piece system becomes a 12-piece system at no extra cost to you. If after 30 days you're not absolutely delighted, send it back for a full refund of the purchase price. Don't wait. Now's your chance to own the X5 for just 4 easy payments, and we'll make the first payment for you. You get the X5 incredible 5-in-1 lightweight, powerful 12-piece steam cleaning system, a $500 value, all for just 3 easy payments of $43. This offer can't last forever, so call or click right now.
Okay, welcome back. It's our beginning, although we always start on Friday with a little preliminaries. We start our Memorial Day weekend commemoration, always on the Saturday show and always with Patrick K. O'Donnell. many of you have followed us for years. We did Breitbart News Radio starting back in 2012, 2013. Over at Sirius XM, expanded it to a daily show, but we always have Saturday and Sunday. In fact, Matt Boyle still does the Saturday morning show. Mark Noah joins us. Mark, I had you on, I think, a decade ago on the work you were doing then. I believe at the time, it was the largest you guys had found, you and your organization, which I want you to describe, had basically found the largest numbers of remains of our warriors in the Pacific that had not been, that up until that time, really in, 2015, 16 had not been found, many decades after the war, sir?
Yes, it's a little known fact that 19% of America's World War II casualties are still missing today. And so we started the History Flight Project with the objective of trying to recover some of those individuals. And on the Pacific island of Tarawa, we did the 3 largest recoveries of MIAs since World War II in 3 different mass burial settings. And that's when I first chatted with you guys on Breitbart.
Talk to me about Tarawa and Peleliu. Tell me about the horrific nature of that. And here's, I think, people, and I remember the time I did, how can there possibly be remains that we don't know it's not in the military cemeteries? One of the most moving experiences you will have as an American going throughout the world, of which no other country in the history of the earth could ever do, is to go to these really understated, magnificent cemeteries, whether it's on the cliffs overlooking Normandy, the beach, the magnificent one in the Philippines. I mean, there's some that are just breathtaking in their simplicity and in their really understated elegance of just everything is so absolutely perfect, but so quiet. People would say that's impossible. All the remains were either buried in these cemeteries or the families were given options to bring the remains home. Isn't that, didn't we go get all of our honored dead, sir?
Well, that's the popular conundrum, is that people would like to think that everything is neat and tidy and elegant, as you aptly describe the American cemeteries overseas and the ones that are so well kept in America. But the simple fact is 19% of America's World War II casualties are still missing today, and that's a little over 80,000 people. And in the setting of Tarawa, the Marines fought an incredibly difficult and strenuous 76-hour battle in which 75% of the engaged units, the 8th, 6th, and 2nd regiments of the 2nd Marine Division, 75% of those individuals were killed, wounded, or missing. And in the sake of the Battle of Tarawa, they made all of the proper burial setups for all the deceased individuals. And then the Seabees came in and turned the island into a modern logistics center and an air base, and removed all of the original cemetery markings and built infrastructure. And in doing so, they lost 50% of the known buried on the island. And so using that information that we recovered from the National Archives, we conducted a 16-year-long project to recover the missing on the island of Tarawa. And today, you see the Chinese Communist Party has pushed their influence throughout the Pacific Rim, using the same footprint that the Japanese did in the 1920s and the 1930s. And the Chinese Communist Party is quite entrenched in the Republic of Kiribati, and they have sought and successfully been able to deny our work visas from being renewed. So we haven't been able to be out doing the work that we've done on Tarawa for the last 16 years for about a year and a half now.
Hold it. The CCP used their influence with the local government to block the not-for-profit that was there to make sure that there's some reverential way that we can handle the remains that still exist?
That's correct. We have an office out there that is in a building that's actually on top of Cemetery 27 that we recovered 52 American individuals from underneath the parking lot and underneath the building. And by having a 24/7 presence out there, we were able to stop the accidental damage to the American graves on Tarawa because the local police would come to us every time construction disturbed one of the graves, and we would recover it. And now we haven't been able to be out there in a year and a half, and I fear that there are numerous people that are being accidentally recovered and lost forever.
I want to go back to the 80,000, because I think I got this statistic from you when you first came on the show. Of the 80,000, 40 or half of them, Army 8th Air Corps that died in the skies over the bombing runs in Germany and Europe in World War II. Is that half of those are missing pilots and crewmen that we have not been able to recover?
I'm not sure if it's half, but it's a very substantial number. We have an office in Europe as well. We've recovered quite a few missing aircrew from World War II in Europe, as well as over 300 Marines on Tarawa. But the number is a little over 80,000 that are still missing, and it's all over the world. And there's even missing American servicemen from training accidents in the United States. And I think in the tempo of World War II, the casualties were not treated in the same way as living people that could contribute to the war effort.
Well, today, I mean, Pete Hicks, but for years, Pete Hicks is Secretary of War, but for years, the Department of Defense, did you guys go to the Department of Defense and say, hey, look, you got 80,000 remains of American warriors that gave their lives in defense of this country? It seems like that would be, I would assume, particularly my daughter, went to West Point and fought in Iraq. You assume as a parent that if God forbid they're wounded, they get taken care of. But if they're killed, you're going to get something more than a note that says a grateful nation, wants to thank you. That one of the unwritten promises that are commitments is that they give their lives for their country, that we're going to take care of their earthly remains afterwards. Is that not a implicit contractual obligation of our Defense Department, and particularly in World War II?
It is an obligation of the Defense Department, but it is not a fully funded or delivered promise. The simple fact is the casualty issue from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, is chronically unfunded. And even the Department of Defense puts their money where they get a bang for their buck, and they don't put a lot of money into the MIA issue. In the case of World War II, after the armistice, the U.S. spent 5 years and what is the then equivalent of about $1 billion doing the recovery work. But after that, they wrote a book that said, we've done it all and we did a great job. And then they put a bow on it and put it away into the safe. And so the end result is more than 80,000 are still missing today. And, we're doing things like last time you interviewed our CEO, Justin Leahu, Sergeant Major Justin Leahu, he was walking across America to raise funding in $5 and $10 and $20 increments to achieve this goal. It's a chronically unfunded issue.
Talk to me about, let's go back to World War II. After that victory, we were the only nation on earth, or I should say, of the major combatants that was not impacted physically in its terrain. So there was a celebratory nature of how we brought that war to a conclusion, although we didn't by far have the highest casualties. You said they allocated $1 billion at the time and put a 5-year time frame on it to essentially recover the remains of our warriors and to either appropriately bury them where they were or bring them home to their parents. That was a 5-year program and $1 billion. Do you know how many were actually recovered at that time?
It was a very large number. It was more than 320,000 individuals were recovered. So they did a very substantial amount of work, and they tried their best to make it happen correctly. But I think, when I went to Emory, a lot of my professors were World War II veterans, and one of my professors told me that the post-war Army was demoralized. And he basically said that all the people that were, aptly trained and experienced had earned enough points to go home. So the people that did the recovery work after World War II were the draftees who had been intended to invade Japan. And the quality of the work was very poorly done. And we have evidence that when we did the recovery of the graves on Tarawa, we would often find an entire person whose skull and legs and arms were missing and everything else was still there. And that's because when they did the recovery work, they grabbed the skull, the legs, and the arms and left the feet and the boots and many of the ribs and other parts of the people. And that's evidence of the lack of quality of the work that they did, but also it's evidence of the value of what's out there till today. We were able to recover numerous individuals in a partial configuration like that who matched unknown burials in the Punch Bowl in Hawaii, and also provided DNA to be individually identified. So it's a very complex situation. In the 50s, they did a really good job. They worked really hard at it, but there were many shortcomings, and there's still, a lifetime of work to be done. I'll probably be doing this kind of work until I'm in a wheelchair.
Talk to me about how, because when I interviewed 10 years ago, you guys were motivated, and then 10 years after, what is it that motivates you and your team to do this?
Well, I like to use the term for the souls of the missing and the families they left behind. And I think it shows you the seriousness of this issue and how, life and death is a spiritual struggle. And so, yes, we go out there for the individual missing servicemen and the families that they left behind.
Of the families themselves, I take it it's their grandchildren and great-grandchildren that today that you notify?
Yes, and we have a close partnership with the Department of Defense and the different departments of the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, and they work directly with the families. But there's many of the individual missing servicemen still have living children, and there are brothers and sisters. So it's not a long time away from them. Those people feel the loss like it was yesterday.
Hang on one second. Mark Noah from History Flights. Cleo Pascal's with us. The incomparable Patrick K. O'Donnell. Short commercial break. Back in a moment.
Memorial Day is about remembering what was done for us and the sacrifices that allowed us to enjoy the freedom we have today. America is a country that was born from sacrifice, courage, and love of country. And Angel is one of the few platforms that reflects these kinds of stories, that remind us of America's nobility and exceptionalism. And right now, Angel is offering a 42% off sale to honor America this Memorial Day. Angel has content such as Something to Stand For with Mike Rowe.
And I'm glad you're along for the ride.
A powerful tribute to the people and stories that shaped America. There's also Indivisible, the true story of a military family navigating service, sacrifice, and the price of duty.
People's lives just part of your job description or something?
Kinda.
Okay, well, my marriage is none of your business.
And there are other great Angel films and series that celebrate America, such as Green and Gold, about perseverance and legacy in a small town.
You do anything to hurt her, and I will hunt you down, and I'll gut you like a 10-pointer.
Or how about Homestead, the story of how a family fights for survival, or even The Last Rodeo, a wonderful film starring Neil McDonough, in which at 50 years old, he has to return to the bull ring after a family crisis. Angel is one of the few platforms where its members have an actual voice. Guild members get to decide what films and series get made. With over 2 million Guild members, it has become clear that Angel is setting a new bar in the entertainment industry. And right now, you can become one of those Guild members for 42% off this Memorial Day weekend. And if you become a premium member, you'll enjoy 2 free tickets to any of Angel's releases in theaters, such as the highly anticipated blockbuster Young Washington. So join today using the QR code on your screen or angel.com/Rav and honor American sacrifice and legacy while enjoying fantastic content that uplifts and amplifies light.
We're living through a monetary crime scene, and your IRA or 401k is a key victim. Hi, Dr. Ron Paul here. In 1971, gold was $35 an ounce. After the dollar was cut loose from it, inflation soared. And just 9 years later, gold hit $850. People who diversified into precious metals survived and thrived. Today, we're in a worse position because we face inflation and massive debt, and every solution to one problem inflames the other. Fortunately, gold is still an option. My trusted friends at Birch Gold Group can help you own gold inside your retirement account. Start now by getting a free info kit on gold. We're facing the same monetary chaos as the 70s with significantly more debt. Don't wait. Get your free info kit from Birch Gold.
Okay, welcome back. Mark, Noah, your great efforts. How can we help you first, either talking to Congress or the administration and helping make sure that the groups themselves inside the apparatus of the Department of War is properly funded? And then number 2, how do we get more information about the great work you guys are doing and how our audience can help?
Anyone can go to www.historyflight.com and they can check out, the different things that the organization has done, and they also can donate off of that page. Everything 100% goes to the actual work. And this picture you're showing right here is evidence of a mass grave that was discovered by a backhoe, and that's a pig that was living on top of the grave. And basically a backhoe had dug right through about 30 individuals. That's cemetery number 10. Those are U.S. Marine Corps uniform parts and bones that were also dug up by a backhoe. And this is an American LVT that had 3 missing servicemen inside of it that was buried after the battle and also discovered during a construction project. It's evidence of the fact that these graves are constantly being interrupted by local construction, and we're not able to save them anymore because we've been effectively banned from the island.
And you're banned from the island because of the direct action of the Chinese Communist Party, correct?
I believe that is correct. And we've been negotiating with the local government, but, the Chinese Communist Party has done this all over the Pacific. They bought off the government in Guadalcanal, and an American Coast Guard cutter came into Hanaria to buy provisions. And they basically said, call us back tomorrow. And they said that for a month until the Coast Guard cutter left. And so it's like a diplomatic way of saying F you without saying that.
Yep. And that's outrageous when you think of the sacrifice our Marines had at Guadalcanal. Mark, Noah, where do people go? Social media, and where they go, the sites are?
It's historyflight.com, and it's also History Flight on Facebook. And you can check out all the different things we've done. It's a fascinating project.
You were doing God's work. I said you're doing God's work, and we want to thank you for joining us on our Memorial Day special.
I would agree. Thanks for having us on. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Cleo, this story boggles my mind, given the work you're doing. And Mark Noah said it right there. The footprint that the Imperial Japan used to challenge the United States in its strategic heartland, which is the Pacific, is the exact playbook that the Chinese Communist, in fact, the Chinese Communist Party may be doing a more sophisticated political operation. Your thoughts, ma'am?
Absolutely. And it's down to the exact same location. So when they flipped Solomon Islands, where Guadalcanal is, from Taiwan to China in 2019, the first place they tried to buy was Tulagi, which was the first place that the Japanese invaded. A lot of it comes down to geography. It's got a good port and it backs onto mountains. But the PLA has systematically studied World War II from both sides. There's a good study on this by Toshi Yoshihara. And they think that the U.S. is the Japanese Navy. They think it's brittle and stretched. It's big, but it can be beat. And they're trying to emplace in the same sorts of locations the Japanese did, and to block the U.S. access to the places that were so pivotal for the U.S. to be able to push back.
Cleo, you're out there you're also doing God's work. Where do people go to get all the information on your social media?
I'm on X, just my name, Cleo Pascal, CleoPaskal, and Getter at Real Cleo. And please consider your next holiday to come out to visit your fellow Americans out in Guam. Maybe not the Marianas at the moment because they're still recovering from a typhoon, but this is America. Americans died out here, and this is where the front line is that's going to keep the mainland safe. Come and be a part of it.
Cleo Pascal, thank you so much, and for the work you're doing God's work. We're coming at the top of the hour, and we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to come back. Patrick K. O'Donnell, what our focus was going to be on was on America 250, particularly the Revolutionary War. Patrick has now finished his third in his trilogy on the Revolution. We're going to talk about those who gave all. I do remind people, the reason I started here is so outrageous what is happening, not just in the war against the Chinese Communist Party, but to think that 80,000 remains of these heroes have not been recovered. You just got to, you got to think about that. When I talk about 12 O'Clock High and show which was based upon a true story, show you the footage of Gregory Peck and all those young pilots in the very first wave in 1942 of the American hit back on Nazi Germany. Think about it. 80,000 are gone, and I think the number's 40,000. I think I got that. I'll dig it up. 40,000 remains from the 8th Air Corps, 8th Air Force in Europe, just to Europe. So you talk about beating the Nazis, and you talk to all these people, Nazis. Hey, there was a generation of young men in this country that were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, 22 years old. They gave all in the hardest days of World War II. That would be the beginning days, right after Pearl Harbor. In 1942, over the skies of Europe. And I don't know, 40,000 or more of their remains. Now, many of those you're not going to find because either parachuted out or blown up, evaporated in the hits. But remember the sacrifice. This is not Veterans Day weekend. This is Memorial Day weekend. This is about our honored dead. And that's all it's about. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to leave you with Minstrel Boy from Black Hawk Down. We'll be back with Patrick K. O'Donnell in a moment.
It's fun for me to win on the course, but it's even more fun to win on Deal Dash.
Lori won $2,000 Tiffany earrings for just $1, and Joseph won an iPad for just $6. There's millions of fast auctions, so try today at DealDash.com for $50 of free credit and your first win guaranteed.
Exceptional design is the result of obsession. Each curve, cut, and line distilled to the essential. Thuma, where elevated design meets quality craftsmanship.
January 7th of 2021, they said the MAGA movement was dead. We were told that this was never going to happen, that the Democrat Party was immovable, and what we witnessed on November the 5th, being this great comeback story, was also the result of the hard work that all of you guys did in the grassroots. For those of you that chased ballots, for those of you that registered voters, this is your victory. But it is only going to improve if we stay engaged in the grassroots, if we continue to knock on doors.
Turning Point PAC is fulfilling Charlie's dream by funding an army of ballot chasers to secure victory in November. Go to tprav.com to donate today and fund ballot chasers in this critical election.
1 in 4 kids grows up without a father. That's not just a bland statistic. It's a national crisis. I'm John Popola, host of Dad Saves America and CEO of Emergent Order Foundation. I like to say we're what it would look like if Warner Brothers and PBS had a baby that actually loved America. We're building a movement that defends the family and calls men to step up, not check out. Visit dsa-rav.com today to take a stand for fatherhood and the American family.
Saturday, the 23rd of May, in the year of our Lord 2026, Memorial Day weekend. We're here with the finest combat historian of his generation, Patrick K. O'Donnell, as we do every year. In fact, we did it over at Breitbart Radio for many, many, many years. Patrick, I want to thank you. Patrick, thoughts on, we were going to do, as you and I discussed, we're going to do live coverage on Monday, but we were going to try to focus this on America 250 because of the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, and then you and I will be doing a lot of coverage of the British Expeditionary Force that was there to crush the independence of the nation in the crib in the first 30 to 60 days. And we want to give the run-up to that and focus on, and your books and other things have been written about these tremendous patriots, many lost to history that gave all in the beginning of the formation of this country. But I had to start because of the situation that's going on in Peleliu and Tarawa. In other places, your thoughts. It is, the country owes its warriors, obviously, if you're wounded, a full recovery. But to the warriors and the parents and the wives and the children or the husbands, there's an implicit contract that their remains will be treated with dignity and that the remains will be brought back and or buried with appropriate ceremony at one of our many magnificent cemeteries throughout the world. I mean, no other nation on earth has, as Colin Powell said, that little patch of earth in these different countries fighting for the freedom of those people and giving all. Your thoughts about all that, sir?
I'm just going to sort of bring in a connection One thing that is striking to me is the statute for bringing back the remains of our fallen extends to World War I and beyond. Wars prior to that, it doesn't extend to. And, I found this firsthand when I was dealing with Washington's Immortals and the potential mass grave that's in Brooklyn of the Maryland 400 or Washington's Immortals, and men that gave everything in a desperate charge that allowed the Continental Army to escape.
This is one that bugs me no end. I'm so glad you brought this up and made this connection.
There's that, and then
I found out about this. I thought I knew everything because people know I'm a know-it-all. I thought I knew everything. I didn't know this. The American Thermopylae took place, one of the most important moments of combat in the history of this country, took place essentially in downtown Brooklyn, right in the very opening days of the Revolutionary War. And Patrick, you told me, it says, hey, the only thing to remember this is a little plaque on I think a tavern wall that says the battle essentially took place here, but we're not sure that's the right thing. They said, hey, there is a mass grave somewhere around here that has the remains of the individuals you wrote the book about, the Washington's Immortals. Tell us that story, because people understand it's not just Tarawa in the Pacific. It's here in the greatest city in the country, in hipster Brooklyn, sir.
It's men of family, fortune, and honor from the Maryland's finest families that formed the 1st Maryland Regiment that had the American Thermopylae, arguably one of the most important small unit actions in history, in the American Revolution in particular, where they fought against Cornwallis. They made a series of charges, 3 or 4 bayonet charges. They were one of the only units that were armed in the Revolutionary Army at the time, the Continental Army, with bayonets. And they charged Cornwallis's position, which was bunkered in a stone house. This charge allowed the Continental Army to create a gap in the lines to escape to the fortifications in Brooklyn Heights. This is told in my book, Washington's Immortals, as well as the indispensables in my newest book, Revolutionary Snipers, because the riflemen will play a key role in this battle as well. But kind of in a more contemporary sense, just today and yesterday, Steve, 44 teen soldiers, including a woman, we don't know her exact, she might have been a camp follower, from Lake George, New York. Their remains were found in 2019 when they were excavating an apartment, were reburied today with full military honors up in Lake George. And this is, an example.
Tell me that story. Where were the remains?
These were the boys. They were found in Lake George, New York. There were 44 remains, and they were part of the expedition to attack Canada in 1775 and 1776, which relates directly to the book that I just wrote, Revolutionary Snipers, where the riflemen are part of the main prong that goes after Quebec City. And it's very possible that within the 44 remains that some of these men were in the unit that I discussed, because they found a button from the 1st Pennsylvania Battalion, not directly the Pennsylvania unit that I write about, but very close. But it's these men that fall back from Canada after the thwarted attack at Quebec.
Hang on.
And they are there.
We've had an unhealthy obsession. Shouldn't say unhealthy. Isn't it true, sir? We were obsessed with taking Canada in the Revolutionary War and all the way up to the War of 1812, which is half of that war was fought on the Canadian border. I mean,
and rightfully so. It's the 14th column.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we don't look at it that way. But and many of these guys,
100%,
they were French first, and very much looking forward to potentially getting rid of British rule. It's an incredible story that I tell in Revolutionary Snipers of basically 2 rifle companies that are in Pennsylvania, as well as Virginians under Daniel Morgan, along with other units that make this amazing trek through the Maine wilderness. And that story is epic. I mean, they're using rafts that are made out of green wood.
This is the expedition to Canada. One of the junior officers in command was Benedict Arnold, right? This is that assault
one of the
Canada
greatest.
They left in frozen. They left in frozen. You want to talk about hell on earth? Is that expeditionary? No, it was unbelievable. They were snake bit, right? They're a little unlucky, but you make your own luck. I mean, it was. I read about it, and I said I couldn't have done the first 3 miles. Right? They're leaving Maine. They're going to march up to Canada through the Maine woods. I go, what a wonderful idea this is. Who thought this? And Benedict Arnold, who had until he betrayed the country, he was on a roll. He's probably one of our finest field commanders. He really showed his mettle in this Canadian operation.
One of our finest field commanders and a brilliant general, a man that led from the front, a tactical genius, just incredible amount of courage, leads the men on this expedition through the forbidding Maine wilderness. They're short on supplies. They're starving. Many of the men, they have to resort to eating their pouches that are made out of leather in their shoes. They're so hungry. And within this story emerges an incredible cast of heroes, including, I really highlight one of the first female combatants who's a camp follower. And she is, her name is Jemima Warner, and she is marching with the men because her husband is a rifleman. And she is a strong woman. I mean, this is a woman that is only 17 or 18 years old, and her husband is in his early 20s, and he decides to just quit. It is that hard. And he just falls down, and she tries everything for a day to convince him to move forward because she knows this, with snow falling everywhere, that he will die of starvation in the elements. And nothing can convince him to move forward, and he dies in the Maine wilderness. A forgotten member of the Continental Army, a forgotten hero. She storms forward with his rifle in hand and will play a role in potentially even they try to get Quebec City to surrender, and they send her in. And she will become the first female combatant in the United States to lose her life at the Battle of Quebec. And a forgotten and untold story that I tell in Revolutionary Cycles.
Why did they send her? Why did they send her in?
Because the first party that they sent in under a white flag was shelled with artillery rounds by the garrison commander, and they thought that if they sent in a woman with a white flag, that they might have a chance, and it did work. They let her in. She delivered the message, and then she was released. But in the midst of the siege of Quebec City, it was an artillery duel for a short period of time, and she would lose her life in the siege.
Quebec City was a Montcalm in General Wolfe. And General Wolfe, this is back in the French and Indian Wars. For people that to get everybody up to date, you don't see more savage fighting by the United States of America, really, in that period was before the French and Indian Wars, and then when it started, all the way through the War of 1812. Because my premise is that the Revolution really didn't stop at Yorktown. It really the military, the British and the British aristocracy's obsession with controlling the United States in this vast wilderness, of which drove King George III even more insane than he was, understanding what he had lost. It was only when Andrew Jackson and that group of it was a ragtag force of freed slaves and buccaneers and Cajuns and good old country boys from Alabama crushed the British Army at New Orleans on the 2nd or 3rd of January of 1815. That's when the war really stopped. But if you want to see just brutal daily combat and real heroism. You go from the French and Indian War, because that's where Washington won his spurs as a junior officer, all the way through the War of 1812. You look up in those northern, you look up in Vermont and Maine, upstate New York, all the way to Michigan and Lake Michigan. Man, it is brutal, and they're not given any quarter. Like
it's a path of invasion.
City. Talk about the path of invasion, because that's always been our. I think the path of invasion is actually up through New York State more. But go ahead and tell us about it.
This area, not Maine per se. We're talking about up the Hudson River Valley through Albany and Ticonderoga. This is the path of invasion to Canada, and also their path of invasion to the United States later on. It's just a brutal, and then as well as in 1777 when General Burgoyne launches a massive army out of Canada towards what would now be Saratoga, which is another aspect of the book that I really get into in great detail. This is the rifleman, the first snipers that will have a huge role in that. Who's
the hero there? Wait for it. Oh, Benedict Arnold. Once again, Benedict Arnold shows up in all his glory on the battlefield, really turning the battle around and saving it for the Americans. But we'll get into all that. Patrick K. O'Donnell, his third volume's out. Just amazing. The trilogy on the American Revolution. Patrick, I'm so glad you took, was it 6 years of your life and turned it on the American Revolution, and just extraordinary works about people, I think, that had been lost in the mist of time. When you read these books, you are so proud that you're an American. You're so proud you came from a country that would produce giants like in these books. And these giants, guess what? They're ordinary people. Ordinary Americans doing extraordinary acts of heroism. Short break.
The media has sold us out. Our institutions are rotting, and the American family is under siege. I'm John Popola, CEO of Emergent Order Foundation, and we are fighting back. From Dad Saves America to bold, unapologetic content about faith, freedom, and fatherhood, we're telling the stories that the legacy media has abandoned. Join the mission. Scan the QR code or visit eof-rav.com to support media that fights for America.
Memorial Day is about remembering what was done for us and the sacrifices that allowed us to enjoy the freedom we have today. America is a country that was born from sacrifice, courage, and love of country. And Angel is one of the few platforms that reflects these kinds of stories, that remind us of America's nobility and exceptionalism. And right now, Angel is offering a 42% off sale to honor America this Memorial Day. Angel has content such as Something to Stand For with Mike Rowe.
And I'm glad you're along for the ride.
A powerful tribute to the people and stories that shaped America. There's also Indivisible, the true story of a military family navigating service, sacrifice, and the price of duty.
People's lives just part of your job description or something?
I mean, kinda.
Okay, well, my marriage is none of your business.
And there are other great Angel films and series that celebrate America, such as Green and Gold, about perseverance and legacy in a small town.
You do anything to hurt her, and I will hunt you down, and I'll gut you like a 10-pointer.
Or how about Homestead, the story of how a family fights for survival. Or even The Last Rodeo, a wonderful film starring Neil McDonough, in which at 50 years old, he has to return to the bull ring after a family crisis. Angel is one of the few platforms where its members have an actual voice. Guild members get to decide what films and series get made. With over 2 million Guild members, it has become clear that Angel is setting a new bar in the entertainment industry. And right now, you can become one of those Guild members for 42% off this Memorial Day weekend. And if you become a premium member, you'll enjoy 2 free tickets to any of Angel's releases in theaters, such as the highly anticipated blockbuster Young Washington. So join today using the QR code on your screen or angel.com/RAV and honor American sacrifice and legacy while enjoying fantastic content that uplifts and amplifies light.
Did you know
know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you.
Call or scan for your free writer's guide today.
Okay, welcome back. Patrick, just to do a reset for the audience and on a Memorial Day special, this is the third in a trilogy of books you've done on the American Revolution, and you're going back to the archives and going back to the original sources and the memoirs. It puts you there. It's like a novel, but you're in the middle of it. And every one of them is filled with action. And you're filled with Americans stepping up and at the very beginning of the country's history. The country. This is the very beginning of the country's history. What we were. This is the DNA of this nation. Just walk me through so people have a level set here. The three books, who they're about, because all of them are about ordinary people that do extraordinary things, and you're filled with this true patriotism as you read these books, sir.
Yeah, I'm very proud of all three of the books that I've written. The first book is really a miracle book in many ways. It's called Washington's Immortals. It was a book that my original editors didn't want me to write. They wanted me to write only about World War II, and it's like all the books have found me in one way or another. And this is the case with Washington's Immortals. I was with Colonel Willie Buell in New York City, and he wanted to know if I wanted to go to the Met. I said, no, hey, let's do a battlefield tour of the Battle of Brooklyn. So we started out at Greenwood Cemetery, where the most infamous and famous New Yorkers are buried, but it's also the site of the opening rounds of the Battle of Brooklyn. We started there, walked through Battlefield Hill, where the Marylanders and other Americans kind of faced off against the British. And we then walked down towards the Michael Raleigh American Legion post and found a rusted old sign that said, "Here lie 254 Americans, Maryland heroes." And it was there I wanted to know, this is a mass grave of who are these men? And, I found out that Mordecai Gist, who's one of the main characters in the book, survived along with others. And I wrote what was the first band of brothers. It was a breakthrough book of the American Revolution. And it's every word of it is true. It's based on pension applications and files. This is nonfiction. It's not fiction, but it reads like fiction in the sense that much of it is in the words of these individuals. And it's about the Maryland line. These are an elite unit, one of America's first elite units that, as we mentioned earlier, they fought the American Thermopylae, which buys Washington's army in Brooklyn, which is about 10,000 strong, an hour more precious in our history than any other, allows the army to escape to Brooklyn Heights and fight on. And it's the Marylanders that then are this elite unit that will fight in the North and the South. And they will play a huge role, places like Cowpens and Guilford Courthouse and even Yorktown, where Mordecai Gist will face off against his old nemesis, Cornwallis, who he faced near the Stone House in Brooklyn. And he will see Cornwallis surrender at Yorktown. And that was my first book, which was a tremendous success. All the books that I've written on the American Revolution, and also actually the last 4 or 5 books have been best-selling books. And the next book in line is The Indispensables, and this is about the Marblehead Regiment. These are the men that rode Washington across the Hudson River, the Delaware River, I should say. And then the East River at Brooklyn, it's where after the American Thermopylae, Washington has to decide to stay or fight. And 2 days later, he decides to evacuate Brooklyn, and the greatest evacuation in military history takes place. And it's on the backs of the Marblehead Mariners, which assembles small boats and row Washington's army, the remains of it, all of it, across the East River. And, it's here that the miraculous fog sets in, that this is a condition that's not, it doesn't happen all the time, ever, hardly. Happens at exactly the right time in right place, which screens the movement of Glover's men, and they bring the rest of the army back to Manhattan. And this book is also about the origins of the First Navy, which happens to be John Glover's fishing boat, which is repurposed into a armed schooner, and they asymmetrically attack the British. There's a little bit of shades of Straits of Hormuz here, if you will, because it causes the insurance rates to skyrocket with the British. The British had been using civilian transports for their logistics to bring over supplies, ammunition, and men from London to North America. And these schooners were interdicting them and seizing boats, causing the insurance to skyrocket. It also is the origins of the United States Navy. Some of these captains within the Marblehead ranks are true giants. They bring in crucial gunpowder at exactly the right time when the Continental Army has none, and they save the war. And Glover's men, just play a huge role throughout the 14th Continental of saving the Army multiple times during the American Revolution.
Hang on. I want to go to this and see how the third book ties in. But if you read the first two books, you realize people that are prepared to fight and give all for their country, although at the time, the actual formation of the country was new. We had been they had been colonies, but we didn't really have a national sense or a national purpose. It is how close things were so many times. There's so many situations, like at the American Thermopylae in Brooklyn, that if Washington's and Morals had not continued to charge the stone house, the British very easily could have swept Washington's army from the field, and the revolution's over in 60 days. Done. By September, you're finished. It's over. This is the thing that you sit there and you're in awe, and you talk about divine providence, and we being this nation being a city on the hill in a chosen land. You see it in these books, and the books are from first-person memoirs or accounts at the time. It's not people after the fact putting together a pattern recognition narrative. You're seeing it through the eyes of the participants. And many of these participants died. I mean, what's so amazing is how many people willingly gave their life on things that were hanging by a thread. And in the first two books, I don't know about the third because I haven't really had a chance to jump into it, but the first two books, you are outmanned and outgunned, and I mean like 10-1 every time. These aren't close fights. These are where you're overwhelmingly the underdog. Yet, in the cussedness, stick-to-itiveness, and grit of Americans, they just won't quit. Why do I say all the time, if you don't quit, you win? The revolution shows you that. If you don't quit, you'll eventually win. That's what the revolution was about. I don't think we won too many of these strategic battles. There weren't a lot of Saratogas. Let's say that. There were not a lot of Saratogas. But there was this cussedness they weren't going to stop. And you see that because until the events happen, these are just normal people going through their lives. All of a sudden, they stand up like you look back at Roman history and Greek history of these armies that stood up at the time and just, wow, you remember their names down through thousands of years. That's what happens here. We just haven't had the Patrick K. O'Donnells that go back and do the archival research. O'Donnell, how many years, and I realize you wrote a Civil War book in between, but if you take all three of your trilogy on the Revolution, how many years of both research and writing collectively did all three take?
16 years.
16
starting
years.
In about 2010.
You got masterpieces. 2010.
Yeah,
you came out with masterpieces.
Every one of them has been a journey. I've written multiple books at once, but these have been, truly a pleasure and an honor to to go to places like Bunker Hill, which are the most storied ground, legendary ground, or Battle Road, where my own ancestors fought, the mills. It's so powerful, and I'm also taken by, I've interviewed, I think, about 4,000 World War II vets. And I'll never forget, I interviewed a member of Darby's Rangers, and I said, "Are you the greatest generation?" And he said to me, "Patrick, what about the boys of 75 and 76 who fought for the cause? That's the greatest generation." And I totally agree with what he said.
I think he may be right, and that's coming from the greatest generation. I think Darby's Rangers nailed it.
This guy was great because I believe it's true because we fought against our fellow Americans in our first Civil War, because there were many loyal Americans. I mean, this is not a clean fight at all. It's an insurgency as well as a civil war and a conventional war against the greatest power, land and naval power at the time, the British Empire. And it's somehow we spawn ideas of freedom and liberty that are more powerful than anything else, that will change the world from this generation and continues to change the world. And it's really, as we look today at the change, it's that revolutionary generation that will save us from so much of what's going on as we fall back to the foundations and pillars that this generation founded.
Hang on for a second. Patrick K. O'Donnell's with us. It's Saturday, and we are doing our special Memorial Day weekend. Live coverage from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. On Monday, Patrick K. O'Donnell's also going to join us. Short break.
This is Fubo. It's your way to watch ESPN and other top sports networks. Plus, get coverage of your local teams all year long. Start watching at FuboTV.com. All the plants your yard needs, without the hassle. That's what FastGrowingTrees.com delivers. And every tree comes with our Live and Thrive guarantee. Get the plants you want and the results you'll love. Save now at FastGrowingTrees.com.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades. Elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Water, nature's ultimate cleaner. We drink it, we bathe in it. Think water, think steam, think clean. Now harness the power of water with the H2O X5 5-in-1 steam cleaning system.
I'm so impressed with the X5. It's an all-in-one product, so I can use it throughout my entire house.
It's cleaning, it's sanitizing. There's no chemicals in it. It's just steam.
This is unbelievable. There is no more odor.
5 minutes, I'm done. Look at that, it's amazing.
If you're ready to step into an effective, economical, and eco-safe world of cleaning, look no further than the H2O X5. Using just the power of superheated water, the X5 Super Hot Steam cleans and kills up to 99% of germs, viruses, and bacteria. You could spend over $500 to purchase the products that the X5 5-in-1 Miracle replaces. But through this special TV offer, you won't spend $400, $300, or even $200. Order your H2O X5 steam cleaning system, a $500 value, for just 4 easy payments of $43. You'll get the X5 steam mop with microfiber pad, the carpet glider, the handheld scrubber, the window glass and mirror attachment, and the garment and upholstery bonnet. It's a complete 10-piece system, all this for just 4 easy payments of $43. But it gets even better. Order now and we'll upgrade your X5 package. We'll add a 6th mode with a dusting and polishing wand. Valued at over $30, this extra bonus attachment makes your H2O X5 the H2O X6. That means your 10-piece system becomes a 12-piece system at no extra cost to you. If after 30 days you're not absolutely delighted, send it back for a full refund of the purchase price. Don't wait. Now's your chance to own the X5 for just 4 easy payments, and we'll make the first payment for you. You get the X5 incredible 5-in-1 lightweight, powerful 12-piece steam cleaning system, a $500 value, all for just 3 easy payments of $43. This offer can't last forever, so call or click right now.
The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need, and discounts for seniors and military.
Welcome back. Patrick K. O'Donnell, one of the reasons you've become a bestseller author is your books are first-hand accounts through archival research or interviews you started with the oral histories of the greatest generation. So you have done thousands of individual interviews, I mean thousands, and tens of thousands of hours, and done archival research for years to get the first-person account of the through the eyes. And since your books don't deal with big strategy, I mean, you lay all that kind of out, but this is really all different from every different war, really focused on Americans in combat. And I might say, although there are no average Americans, the average American in combat, the ordinary person doing extraordinary things. What does Memorial Day, do you think, and you made the comment, hey, when we did the battlefield, the recovery of the remains, we didn't go past World War I. What do you think for the heroes and patriots that gave their lives for this country, what Memorial Day would mean to them if you had the opportunity to talk to them about it?
I think it would be giving us our tomorrow and our today. They're responsible for securing our freedom through their sacrifice. And therefore, it's absolutely critical that we honor and remember them. I think that's at times a shortcoming, that we do not remember our heroes as we should.
Memorial Day today in the 250th, given that you've just written the third book of your trilogy on the revolution and on the fighting men of the revolution, fighting men and women, I might add, to the revolution. The 250th, what does it mean to you as we go through this and now the lead up to July 4th? And folks, that's not ending our coverage. I would actually say I would maybe not Real as America's Voice. They're going to be part of all of it as we will. But particularly for the war room, we've always made a big emphasis that 4th of July is obviously very important. It is the document. It's the declaration of not just independence. It's a declaration of war against an empire. That, because I think that you had the American Revolution, then you had the War of Independence, then you had building the nation. They were kind of in 3 big blocks. The signing of the Declaration brings to the end, I believe, the curtain comes down on the first part, which is the American Revolution, to actually get these loyal sons of England to essentially write a document that declared independence and therefore going to war against their mother country. Then you had the Revolutionary War itself that went on for, 7 or 8 years. Like I said, if you don't quit, you're going to win. Now in the 250th, our coverage, I think, will actually get more intense after July 4th because we're going to go through with Patrick the importance of that first 6 months, because the British were quite smart. They created a empire with a bunch of pirates, essentially. Francis Drake and company, being pirates down in the Caribbean, being pirates stealing the gold from the Spanish and defeating the Spanish Empire. They built an empire with really nothing. And the Americans, which could have been the foundational element along with India, said, we're out. We're going to opt out of this. We want our independence. We want our freedom. We want to be able to call our own shots. It's in that 250th, and the British realized immediately, we must put this down. And the only way to put it, we've talked enough. We're through talking. There's no diplomacy. There's no talk. This has to be crushed in a vast military expedition. And they sent the largest expeditionary force in the history of the world at the time. 300, I think, combat ships, 300 warships in New York Harbor, the British Army Expeditionary Force in Staten Island, and then landing on Long Island. And as Patrick so brilliantly discusses it time and again, the Battle of New York, retreat, just at the very last second, like almost a movie that's written. You know, they save themselves, they save the army, so they retreat all the way through Manhattan and then to New Jersey. They get their ass kicked all the way down till they cross the Delaware, and they get back to Pennsylvania and they say, hey, man, we got to regroup. Until that time, even a signer of the Declaration from New Jersey had asked for a pardon from the British because it was over. We had nothing but a string of defeats. Now, it was heroism and bravery, American Thermopylae, the American Dunkirk. As Patrick says, you know, these ordinary people doing extraordinary things to save this country, this republic in the cradle, but the British understood we're going to crush it militarily in the cradle. So given that, and people barely, the general population barely understands the Declaration of Independence. Your thoughts on this 250, Patrick, since for 16 years, you've lived with the spirit of 76. That Darby's Rangers, Greatest Generation member ain't wrong. He says, hey, the Greatest Generation, Patrick, don't forget the boys of 75 and 76. What would they say about our 250th, sir?
They would say that I think that we've lost much of what they fought for. And I think there's a need in some ways to retrench, to look back at the ideals of freedom and liberty that they forged through their blood, sweat, and tears, to go back in many ways to what, you know, those sacrifices were all about. And that was about freedom. I mean, Revolutionary Snipers opens up in a forgotten battle. And that battle is on October 10th, 1774. Months before the Revolutionary War, at a place called Point Pleasant in the Ohio Territory. And these men, I mean, the opening scene of this is like something out of Indiana Jones, where several men are sent out to go hunting to find forage for a 1,000-man army. They're to go out hunting. And it's in the early twilight of the morning, and they stumble upon an Indian camp of hundreds, if not over 1,000 men, warriors that are about to pounce on them. And these men are then running for their lives as they're avoiding, musket rounds from the Indians. And they make their way into the camp. One of them is killed. And they then blurt out that they're about to be attacked. And it's an epic battle that nobody's even heard about hardly. For, over 14 hours, these men are nearly overrun by a native army, a massive army of warriors. And it's the technology that they are wielding, the Pennsylvania long rifle, that saves them in many cases. But what comes out of that, Steve, is an even more forgotten aspect of the American Revolution. It's really one of the first declarations of our independence at a place called Fort Gower, which is on the Ohio River, where these men assemble after this war takes place. And they assert their rights of liberty and freedom, and that they will defend those rights as Americans. And that's the opening of Revolutionary Snipers.
It's amazing. It's amazing you chose the Ohio Valley. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir. Your book starts in the Ohio Valley. If memory serves me, in the Treaty of Paris, the one thing the British demanded is that all movement of the colonists would stop at the Appalachian Mountains. And in fact, the Ohio River Valley was specifically what they said they were not going to allow to be touched, correct? I mean, this, of course, being Americans, not only did we bitch and moan about being taxed for our country at the time, Britain, to fight the French and Indian War on our territory, which led to the revolution, but the prohibition against going into the Ohio Valley, the American colonists or American citizens then said, hey, how about this? Screw you. We're going to go where we want to go, and flooded the zone. So it's quite interesting that you started in the Ohio Valley, because that was considered, I think, by many people to be the jewel of the crown, right? That expansion into that vast wilderness with all the natural resources and beauty and farmland, all of it. I mean, it was even beyond the Indians. It was obviously, although they were nomadic, their territory, but the Brits, and, you know, the French knew what they lost, but the Brits were not prepared to lose that. Correct, sir?
That's part of it. But what I really get into here is that army was almost sacrificed. It's a long story to the Native Americans. And what I wanted to focus on was what came after it. And it's a declaration. They do a two-way thing. They kind of declare their allegiance to the crown, but they also leave a veiled threat that they are armed and ready to fight for their liberty, if need be, as Americans. And it's a very much a forgotten chapter of the American Revolution, but also just the full arc of the Revolutionary War and revolution.
When you say revolutionary,
the revolution begins. What was that?
When you say revolutionary snipers, was this because the Americans with the long rifle were such good marksmen, and we had proven, particularly on the retreat, that we killed so many British regulars on the retreat back to Cambridge and to Boston, that this was going to have to be dealt with, that the Americans were actually not just good shots, but because of the frontier nature. In Lexington and Concord, you saw on the march back, it was brutal. Did you get inspired for the book, given the fact of how good we were, that we had a strategic advantage as far as snipers and the ability to shoot?
It's a very complicated story, but the first 10 companies of the Continental Army are riflemen, and they are armed with path-breaking technology, the Pennsylvania long rifle, which spawns in early 1709, roughly, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's imported from gunsmiths in Switzerland and Germany, which take German weapons and make them better. It's a product of the environment. It's expanded, it's longer, it's lighter, and it's more deadly. And the book is about the technology of the long rifle, but also the tactics and doctrine that go along with it. But it's really a band of brothers on these men who are the best shots in Washington's army. It's an untold story until this book. It's also a book about early special operations, and these men are really precursor to special operations forces. They're doing long-range reconnaissance. Several of these men before the war, they're known as long hunters. They will go into the wilderness against, all odds, Native Americans, whatever, and hunt and come back. They will make, hundreds of miles in the Alleghenies alone or with a small group of men to hunt and come back. They're just fearless men that are also happen to be expert shots that will form the foundation of the Continental Army, the first 10.
Hang on one second. We're going to take a short commercial break. Our kickoff to Memorial Day weekend here in the War Room. We'll continue in just a moment.
Exceptional design is the result of obsession. Each curve, cut, and line distilled to the essential. Thuma, where elevated design meets quality craftsmanship.
Stay tuned to get a free automatic toilet bowl cleaner from Mermaid. Your sink stopper's broken, but fixing a drain is such a pain. Not anymore. Introducing Mermaid Drain Magic, the instant solution to most broken drains. Simply remove and replace. In just seconds, you can fill and drain with a simple press of a button. Drain Magic makes replacing your old, broken, rusty, even missing sink stoppers fast and easy.
Practically took me 5 seconds to replace. It absolutely made my sink look like brand new.
Honestly, I couldn't believe it. How could it work so well, look so good, and install so quickly?
And forget clogging, because Drain Magic's anti-clogging basket helps catch debris before it goes down the drain. When the basket's full, just discard. Helps prevent clogs in your sink by catching hair, food, even jewelry. Drain Magic uses a silicone gasket that creates a watertight seal without messy plumber's putty. Look, this sink was filled hours ago and the water still remains. Press the spring-loaded stopper and the water's gone. Made of brass and finished in high-quality chrome, Drain Magic is rust-resistant and built to last.
It's made out of metal, not plastic, and it actually has some weight to it. Yeah, this is the real deal.
Just looks like a new sink now.
Order your 2-in-1 drain solution, Mermaid Drain Magic, today for only $19.99. And with every order, you're going to get a Mermaid automatic toilet bowl cleaner absolutely free. Just drop it in the tank for up to 3 months of hands-free cleaning. Mermaid's ultra-concentrated formula cleans and deodorizes with every flush. But wait, due to rising costs, this may be your last chance to get Mermaid Drain Magic at this incredibly low price with free Mermaid toilet bowl cleaner. There's a strict limit of 3. Call or click now to order.
Call 1-800-519-3206 or visit getdrainmagic.com. So call 1-800-519-3206 or visit getdrainmagic.com. Order now.
1 in 4 kids grows up without a father. That's not just a bland statistic. It's a national crisis. I'm John Popola, host of Dad Saves America and CEO of Emergent Order Foundation. I like to say we're what it would look like if Warner Brothers and PBS had a baby that actually loved America. We're building a movement that defends the family and calls men to step up, not check out. Visit dsa-rav.com today to take a stand for fatherhood and the American family.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you.
Call or scan for your free writer's guide today.
Hey, welcome back. Patrick K. O'Donnell, we finished the trilogy. The book's going to be coming out. Give me your thoughts as we roll in. You're going to be here with live coverage. We always do every Memorial Day as we wrap up our Saturday kind of kickoff coverage. We started in the Pacific with the bloody battles of Peleliu and Tarawa and the remains of our heroes that have not been brought home or given proper burial at one of these magnificent cemeteries we have throughout the world, and particularly in the Pacific. Your thoughts, Patrick K. O'Donnell?
My thoughts are that this is, the books I've written are about ordinary Americans that do extraordinary things. They're about untold stories, in many cases, smaller stories that tell a larger story of a larger conflict. It's about individuals that are on the inflection points of history, be it Saratoga or on Battle Road or at Bunker Hill or at Tarawa or at D-Day, where, it's members of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, 2 men, really 1 man, that disables the big guns at Pointe du Hoc. It's about individual agency, individuals that are able to bend and shape history. They're not supposed to do it. But against all odds, they somehow do it. And I think that that's the lesson, the great lesson of history. It's the great lesson of American history that, we can understand, that it's something that's in our blood. Revolutionary Snipers brings back rugged individuals that changed the odds, that did things that were just absolutely extraordinary, that shouldn't have been done, but somehow they do it. And it's a theme that runs through all of the books that I've written. And also within those books are Americans that have given every last bit of their devotion, their last full measure, that have fallen for our country. And it's what Memorial Day is all about. It's about honoring those individuals in their sacrifices.
Your books, and I want to close on this. Your books have done an amazing job of showing people that are normal Americans going about their lives, and then the call to action is about in defense of this republic in many different places throughout, because you've covered every major war. And they're, up until the time of their call, they're ordinary people. They're just going about their lives. And once they come into these conflicts, what they do, you sit there and you read it, and this is like a novel. I can't believe these folks, against all these odds and all this hardship and all these deprivations, they pull together and they're able to achieve extraordinary things that put us on the path to the success that we've had to get here today. Give me a minute or two about that before we wrap up, and I'll see you back on Monday. Is that the theme of if you read all of your books, the theme is ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Your thoughts, sir?
Extraordinary things that are on, in many cases, the inflection points of history. And it's history that is alive, that it provides us with perspective. Once, there are times when we feel like this could have never happened in the past, or things are so bad that we'll never be able to get through them. And then we look at what our great ancestors accomplished, and we realize it just provides an incredible perspective of what they accomplished and what they achieved. And then, I'll say this too. The books are the good, the bad, and the ugly. I just let them tell their story, and I tell it from all perspectives. There's no agenda other than to let them tell their story and let history unfold. And in many cases, that's very gritty and dirty and bloody but it's the reality of conflict, and also the reality of history.
The books are extraordinary. Where do they go get your writings? We're going to wrap up, and I'll see you on Monday. Where do we get all your writings, and where do people go on social media to keep up with your comments? You've always got great stuff up on Breitbart all the time. Where do people go?
You can pre-order American Snipers on BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. All the books are best-selling books. Which Revolutionary Snipers is coming out in a few months. But the others you can get at any bookstore. I'm at Combat Historian on X for Twitter, as well as Getter. And my website is patrickkodonnell.com. All my books are up there as well. And you can see there's just, hundreds of reviews from everything from the Wall Street Journal to the Associated Press, on the books, as well as, like, for instance, Indispensables. We have nearly 2,000 5-star reviews from readers.
Amazing.
Many of them are war room readers, which I appreciate.
Oh, yeah. I love your books. Okay, Patrick, fabulous job. I'll see you on Monday. Monday at 10 a.m. We're going to return 10 a.m. to 2. 10 a.m. to 2, we're going to do live coverage of the commemoration on Memorial Day with the President of the United States. I want to thank you. And we'll leave you with the magnificent rendition of Minstrel Boys from Black Hawk Down. I want to thank everybody that pitched in. Real America's Voice, everybody helps with this special every year. And don't forget History Flights. Extraordinary work on the remains of our fallen heroes. Keep in mind, 80,000 from World War II, still not recovered. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Monday for live coverage for 4 hours of the commemoration of Memorial Day and the 250th anniversary of the founding of this republic in the year of our Lord 2026. See you then.
Memorial Day is about remembering what was done for us and the sacrifices that allowed us to enjoy the freedom we have today. America is a country that was born from sacrifice, courage, and love of country. And Angel is one of the few platforms that reflects these kinds of stories, that remind us of America's nobility and exceptionalism. And right now, Angel is offering a 42% off sale to honor America this Memorial Day. Angel has content such as Something to Stand For with Mike Rowe.
And I'm glad you're along for the ride.
A powerful tribute to the people and stories that shaped America. There's also Indivisible, the true story of a military family navigating service, sacrifice, and the price of duty.
People's lives just part of your job description or something?
I mean, kind of.
Okay, well, my marriage is none of your business.
And there are other great Angel films and series that celebrate America, such as Green and Gold, about perseverance and legacy in a small town.
You do anything to hurt her, and I will hunt you down, and I'll gut you like a 10-pointer.
Or how about Homestead, the story of how a family fights for survival? Or even The Last Rodeo, a wonderful film starring Neil McDonough, in which at 50 years old, he has to return to the bull ring after a family crisis. Angel is one of the few platforms where its members have an actual voice. Guild members get to decide what films and series get made. With over 2 million Guild members, it has become clear that Angel is setting a new bar in the entertainment industry. And right now, you can become one of those Guild members for 42% off this Memorial Day weekend. And if you become a premium member, you'll enjoy 2 free tickets to any of Angel's releases in theaters, such as the highly anticipated blockbuster Young Washington. So join today using the QR code on your screen or angel.com/RAV and honor American sacrifice.